In this second video on solving unfamiliar equations, we're going to look at method 2 for solving these types of equations. This one is much more similar to the algebraic method that we would use to solve a quadratic, for example, but we are still going to use graphs. It's just going to give us a different way of plotting the graphs. So in this method, we are going to again be dealing with equations of the form f of x equals g of x, so one function equal to another function. And in this case, we subtract one side from the other and put y equals f of x minus g of x. We then find the roots of this function, and the roots are the solutions to the original equation. In this method, we will only be drawing one graph each time, one function each time, and we'll be looking for the roots, whereas in method 1 we had to draw two functions and look for the points of intersection. In this case we have less functions to draw, but we have some algebraic manipulation we have to do first, in that we have to subtract one function. However, that algebraic manipulation is not particularly tricky. So once again we can look at 2x squared equals 3x plus 2. So the first thing we want to do is subtract g of x from the f of x. So we get 2x squared minus 3x minus 2, and we want to do y equals that. So that is what we want to plot. Y equals 2x squared minus 3x minus 2. And when we put that into our graphics calculator, we get this graph here. And then all we do is we find the roots of that function, which are there and there. So we get the answers x equals 2 and x equals minus a half, the same as we did by looking at this the other way and algebraically. Now let's consider the second example from before, which was 2 to the power of x equals 4 minus x. So once again we do f of x minus g of x. So the left hand side stays the same, 2 to the x, and then we're going to subtract 4 minus x. So we get minus 4, but then minus x gives us plus x, and then we put y equal to that, and this time this is what we shall be drawing, the graph of y equals 2 to the x minus 4 plus x. And this time when we put that into our graphics calculator, we get this graph here, and we are looking for the root of that equation, which is where it crosses the x-axis, so we're looking for that value there. Again, with this one, it's not a very easy value to find, so we're going to have to use our graphics calculator to manually find the root of that graph, and when we do that, we find that it is equal to that value there. So our answer is x equals 1.39 to 2 decimal places. This second method finds exactly the same answers as the first method. As I said, this one uses a bit of algebraic manipulation, whereas the first one requires you drawing two separate functions. Unless it specifically says which method you should use, you can use either to solve any equation that comes up with any complicated functions on either side of the equal sign.